Hello, I'm William J. Archambault Jr. for the Real Estate Investment Institute, and this we call Seeing Through Transparency. Inexperience, ignorance, confusion, complexity, illogical thinking, and informational overloads are just part of the consumer's problems and shortcomings when making logical and wise real estate and financing decisions. And then there are the problems with their professional help. There's an abundance of incompetence, inexperience, ill-trained, and functionally illiterate agents. Not to mention the cons, the frauds, the crooks, the fakes, the amount of bankers and the builders. Then there's the latest con being perpetrated on the unsuspecting public: transparency. The ongoing call for transparency. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Who could argue with showing a home buyer everything about his home? Who could argue with showing borrowers everything about their loan? And who could argue with such a noble idea? And it does sound noble, doesn't it? However, is transparency really noble? Or is transparency just the latest version of the shell game? Is it an attempt at Three Card Monty? An attempt to blind you to the facts of the transaction? Is it in fact hiding trees in the forest? Many of you know I went to grade school in central Michigan farm country. I know one end of a cow from another. I know how to milk one. I know how to take care of one. I know how to feed one. I know how they're bred. Hey. When I was young, like all my friends, I was a member of the 4-H. Wonderful organization I owe a lot to. But both in central Michigan and later in southwest Michigan, both the clubs I belonged to took great delight in traveling to Lansing, to Michigan State University, and touring the agriculture department, and in particularly the dairy barns. Comes to mind because of transparency. Transparency in the dairy department, which was basically part of the veterinary school, meant portholes. Big round ones that looked like they belonged on the side of a boat. And you took a little flashlight and you shined it in the porthole, and it was transparent. You could see into the cow. Didn't bother the cow. They had a big hole in their side because it was covered up with this porthole. They lived a long, happy life. Okay? And they functioned like every other cow. Some of the cows, though, didn't have a porthole on their side. They had it down below and they were on their udder. And you could look in. You could see the mammary glands supposedly producing milk. You really couldn't see too much of anything except for a collection of milk. Okay, after a long day and before milking. The point is that while transparency sounds great, it didn't do any good for those of us farm kids and the farmers that brought us there. We already knew everything we needed to know about the cow. We knew how to take care of it. We knew how to milk it. We even knew how to turn it into a hamburger. Transparency just confused the issue. We weren't veterinary students. And the public in general are not going into the real estate business. They're not going to become realtors. They're not going to become loan officers or loan originators, if you will. Okay? Transparency can be used to distort and to hide information. Indeed, hiding trees in the forest. They don't want people to know what they claim. They don't want people to understand what their total cost is, what their payment is, what their obligation is. No, they want to provide them. That information is in there, but they want to provide them with all this smoke and mirrors, all these other trees standing there. And yes, they're part of the forest, but so what? Do you really care what the line breakdown is on cost? No. And it's a disparity. Yeah. Mortgage brokers have to disclose things the way they're presented to them. So we have all these line items. And then we have our gross profits, or part of our gross profits, being presented as yield spread premium. And the bank says, well, we don't charge that. Well, where do you think we get the money? Comes from the bank. And they don't have yield spread premium. No, they have gross profits. And until recently, it was unheard of for a bank not to make a profit. On the real estate side of it, Transparency is trying to dilute the value of the professional services. They're telling us that thanks to Transparency, the homeowner, the would-be homeowner, the buyer, the investor, now can gather all the information by himself. He can know everything there is about that property without involving the realtor. Well, I've been in finance and real estate for close to 40 years now, and I don't know of a time when the consumer needed professional real estate help more than they do today. It's all well and good that we have this transparency. Now, you've got all the information. Just like those kids staring in the side of that cow. We got all the information. What are we going to do with it? What is a consumer going to do with it? He needs professional help to interpret it. There's never been a greater need than today. And does it really matter where the information comes from? It's knowing how to interpret it, how to use it to the consumer's best advantage. And that doesn't come with transparency. Transparency simply clouds the issue. Today, your services are needed more than ever. The public needs you. Okay, the sellers need you. The buyers need you. Lenders are changing, and that's not necessarily good for the consumer. You need competent help more today than ever in the past. And you only have to look at these people that are screaming about losing their houses. And mind you, they're not transparent about why. You only lose a house for one reason. You stop making the payments you agreed to. But you only need to look at them to understand that good, competent help is more necessary than ever before. Now, go buy a house.